आज मळबांत उजवाड दिसता, गोंयकार उठल्यात. हो इंटरव्यू सुरू करचे पयलीं काळजांतल्यान तुमकां सगळ्यांक देव बरें करूं. तुमचे कमेंट्स, तुमचे फोन आनी तुमचो मोग will always keep Goa safe. Thank you very much. Today I have a very different kind of a person on my show. A Bengali Babu. A man who traveled to Goa 17 years back. He was the group editor of Goa's newspaper, Herald, one of the very good newspapers that stood for Goa. And Sujay Gupta's words written in that Herald was read by many, and many of the elections got influenced on what he said. Sujay, welcome.
Thank you, Randy.
You know, it is normally said that to tickle a journalist, you have to give him a cup of tea. And without that cup of tea, those words don't come out. So, shall we call it chai pe charcha or coffee pe charcha, something like that?
Yeah, let's call it chai or any beverage pe charcha. It always works.
Exactly. You know, as long as the spoken word is for our state,
Absolutely, absolutely.
the drink does not matter.
Of course, but it's always a good catalyst, and conversations become warmer and friendlier and more honest, perhaps. And thank you for having me, Nandan.
Thank you. Okay, so my first question: how did you land in Goa? From Bengal to Goa. Okay, so by the way, some of the Goans, we have a lineage in Bengal. We have migrated.
Yes.
We are a migratory species from Bengal to Goa.
Yes.
So some of them
Yes,
have
I'm
that
aware of it.
lineage.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start with this question: is how did you land in Goa?
See, Nandan, for the last 17 years, I've been asking myself the same question as to how did I actually land up in Goa? Because there was no plan, there was no motive.
Okay.
I would say I drifted into Goa, followed my heart
Okay.
without even realizing that I was here.
Okay.
It's not as if I was a frequent visitor to Goa or whatever.
Okay.
But there was some stirring in the soul, perhaps,
Okay.
to lead what I felt then was a freer life away from shackles, or to lead a life where one's actions and beliefs wouldn't be questioned.
Okay.
So, for me, Goa was not really a destination. It was always a state of mind and state of spirit. And what is interesting is, which few people may have missed, I have actually come to Goa twice. I have moved to Goa twice.
Oh.
I first moved in 2004
Okay.
when the idea was to just come, settle, work on a book. There are a lot of these dreams every writer has. And I quit a very important job, or so it seemed at that point of time. I was the deputy editor of the Times of India in Calcutta. Then they moved me to Bombay. So to quit all that and move to Goa seemed like a deep plunge career-wise and so on and so forth. But very honestly, the journalist Sujay Gupta did not move. The person moved.
Okay.
Okay, journalism happened. I think journalism followed.
Okay.
The Gomantak Times offer came by chance.
Okay.
It was Gomantak Times then. I converted that immediately into a sexier sounding name called GT.
Yes.
Until the day it closed down recently, it still remained as GT.
Yes.
But Gomantak Times to GT was my humble creation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And but what happened was that when I came in and got into journalism far quicker than what I thought I would, and I realized that Goa was the first time in my long career as a journalist, after having worked for different very high profile publications across the country and obviously gone into different places, done a lot of stories, broken new ground and all that. But in that fledgling newspaper called the Gomantak Times, which then became GT, as I was telling you, Nandan, the first time I kind of came into my own elements, because I felt that the core to any good journalism or writing or the newspaper profession, as it were, lies in the energy of the people.
Okay.
And their love for the land.
Okay.
In Bombay or in Delhi or in Calcutta, in all these places, the issue was, there were myriad issues. There was politics, there was business, there was so many other issues. But the point here is that the involvement of the people in deciding on the future of their land, or the intensity of agitations, as it were, okay, or the deep commitment in spaces that are not really personal but public. And these public touch points is something that I've never seen before in any other place that I worked on. Also, what was very important is that if there was a decision taken by the government, there would be not just deep resentment, but people would have the guts, the wherewithal, and that sense of claiming their land. So if there was a wrong, they would come onto the streets to set it right. If there was a police atrocity, they would not just discuss it in their homes. They would go march to the police station and ensure that that certain policeman is brought to book. If there was corruption, or if there was a drug trade going on somewhere, you would never be met with silence. So what is important is that what is the journalist's strength? Your strength is the energy of the people. And I think that was a great period of excitement when we could take on people, take on politicians, ask them questions. So now here is a very interesting thing that I'd like to say. I did not come here to enhance my journalism career.
Okay.
But because of how journalism presented itself to me and what I could do, I became more involved as a journalist, and because of which I became more involved into the Goan diaspora, the place and the land. So what was really happening, there were two simultaneous parallels that were happening. One was the journalism narrative, which became stronger and stronger. And that happened also due to People Connect. And then when you meet people for a story or for a cause, you also meet them personally. You delve into their lives, you delve into their cultures. I have this habit of having conversations. Now, then those developed into great relationships and friendships. And you saw Goa not just as a story, but as a place where a part of your soul perhaps always lay, and you came to claim it. So I almost felt it was a homecoming that I never thought would be a homecoming. I thought there were pieces of me in the Goan soil that I could claim as my own. That I think was very important. And then in 2 years' time, and of course that was the time when one took on everybody. My arrival coincided with Mr. Parrikar's term as Chief Minister. Okay, so he was there very much in power. He was a very, very young, fiery, no nonsense Chief Minister. Came with a lot of pluses, which when people said he rode a scooter to work and he was a workaholic and he took on. So a lot of those narratives are also getting played out. I was also very young then, and also I had no baggage. There were no relationships. I could not upset anybody because I did not know anybody then. I was developing a lot of friends through my work. But as far as politicians were concerned, I could just go out and say what I had to say. And I used to be, at that point of time, I would say, a little rough yet exciting in the way my headlines were formed and how I took on people. Headlines would be direct questions to the Chief Minister. Okay, stuff like, Mr. Parrikar, how can you let Goa down? Or how did you? So a lot of, even in terms of the way we are presenting stories. Okay, if there was a human rights violation, we would even ask direct questions to ministers saying, don't you have sons and daughters? What would you do if you were in the same boat? So stuff like that, very, very, very nonchalant, but very strong, very, very irreverent yet relevant. So all that was very exciting. And then people started getting down. They were wondering, who is this character? And what has happened to this paper called, Gomantak Times used to be a steady paper, Goan paper. And people were very excited. And because of which a lot of young journalists started coming in, wanting to work. I picked up, got people from
Ashley.
colleges and young people from colleges, from other places. People who are working in different organizations suddenly wanted to do journalism. So it was a very, very interesting phase of my life then. Of course, it was also marked with an absolutely open battle of sorts with Mr. Parrikar. Of course, he was a chief minister. I was a very young editor. I'm not saying one could compare each other at that level. He had come through his own merit and had his own space to be. I questioned a lot of his actions at that point of time. Even actions which I felt were leaning towards one majority community and against the minorities. But I was very open about it. So, and Mr. Parrikar also, obviously we all know, was a kind of a person who couldn't handle criticism as well as he did in his latter years.
Yeah.
He just couldn't brook. And firstly, and I'm sure you'll ask me this, firstly, who is this outsider coming in? Who is this outsider editor suddenly coming and asking me, who is this Gupta asking a question to a Parrikar? That became a big thing, that who is this Bengali who's coming in? What does he know about our land and about our people? But at the end of the day, a story and an issue is a story and an issue. You see it professionally. If there's a human rights violation, then a human rights violation is not painted with a Goan brush or a Bengal brush or a Bombay brush. It's brushed with it is seen through human eyes, and you paint the story as a human story. But that wasn't ever understood. Then they started saying that, look, am I involved with somebody? Is there a politician backing me, or is there is there a motive behind it? Because obviously people hunt for motives. When it was absolutely unadulterated, just came and did my job. It's like Rishabh Pant reverse sweeping Anderson and getting to 100 off a brand new ball. Absolutely irrelevant. Nobody could. It was exactly like that. I was that young Rishabh Pant who would just hit because I like hitting balls out of the park.
You did tickle his
So that happened.
spots.
Yes. So then in 2006, I got a call from, because I used to work for Gomantak Times. They were owned by the Sakal group of publications in Maharashtra. I was just told that I'm doing an excellent job in Goa and I'm destined for bigger things, so I should move out of Goa. And you know how, Nandan, how these things work.
Absolutely.
When you love to be in a place and you're told that you need to go to Pune and help in special projects because your vision is very good, you understand how that is coming from and the forces behind. So perhaps I must have been uncomfortable to some dispensations at that point of time. So moved back. I joined NDTV after that. From Pune I went to Bombay, did a stint with NDTV, and I couldn't take it anymore. I just quit because I had to come back to Goa. And when I came back to Goa, I did not have a journalism job. I joined a corporate. I joined the Timros.
Yes.
That's another phase.
Yes.
With very mixed emotions.
Yes.
But that also happened. So yeah, so you must understand that I was so desperate to come back to Goa, and leaving an NDTV job, which obviously meant that Goa kept on pulling me.
Okay, I am going to ask you a question. See, in on my Candid show, I am giving you the right to refuse to answer this question. Okay, because it is a very, very significant question. See, year 2012, elections are on. Your written word in Herald influenced a lot of voters. For the first time, a lot of Catholics voted for BJP because BJP was backed by Herald. And that is how the first time BJP got 21 majority in.
Yeah, Nandan, I'll answer this question, and
You're going to answer it?
I would love to answer this.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
And my viewers would love to, because this
Yes.
is the scoop.
No, I would love to answer this because this is something that needs to be documented because it is a fact of life. I would say that the BJP returning to power
Okay.
was not a surprise given the circumstances that were there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know there is a feeling that Herald had a large role to play, but I would look at it differently. Herald did not back the BJP at all. There was a process that happened. I'll tell you how it happened. See, even to this day, I believe that a good newspaper can influence public opinion.
Okay.
But even the best newspaper cannot create an opinion which does not prima facie exist.
Yes.
What I felt I did and the team did, and I take full responsibility for picking up the straws in the wind which ultimately became a typhoon at that point of time.
Okay.
Herald or me in my editorials did not say that the people of Goa, especially in those crucial 8 seats of Salset, obviously meaning Catholics, were fed up of the Congress. I did not say they were fed up of the Congress. They said they were fed up of the Congress. People were at that point of time, if you recall, Nandan, family Raj was at its peak.
Absolutely.
Corruption was at its peak. The entire mining scam, though later on it kind of mining got stopped during BJP's time and so on and so forth. I mean, and then all that happened. But you must remember that from 2007 to 2012, the mining boom happened under the Congress's premiership. Oh, okay. There was a lot of money made by a lot of ruling party politicians. There's no doubt about it. We continuously started exposing around that time, and I would say before 2012, 7, 8, 9, 10 happened. And 9 and 10 was when the mining related corruption just flew out. Okay. That is the time when a lot of fly by night traders came in from outside and used to just extract ore and take away. See, I would say there was no illegal mining, Nandan. There was illegal mining transportation. That was more illegal than illegal mining. There was illegal, okay, there was illegal extraction, of course. Mining was done in leases that were either Benami or were done by people who did not actually own the lease. These things happen. I mean, one can go on and on, but that's a different narrative at all. But I'm talking about how 2012 happened. People also realized that a large number of congressmen involved in the mining trade were making money. They were machinery contractors. They were in league with some of the mining owners. Then fly-by-night traders came whose addresses are still not traceable. And they took over and went off. So the issue was gradually people started realizing and understanding that the nexus between these illegal mining operators, the government, officials in the government, and MLAs and politicians in the government. So for the first time, the corruption became an issue which was huge in Goa. See, you've been in Goa longer than you do.
Yeah.
I do. You understand Goa much better than I do. I'm only saying that you will recall that before 2012, corruption was never such a big issue in that scale. So the issue is people are fed up of family politics, people are fed up of corruption. And they were looking at a fresh alternative. People who voted for the BJP were not Atal Bhakts or Advani Bhakts. They had nothing to do with the national BJP. They had nothing to do with the Ram Mandir. They had nothing to do with Hindutva.
So it was an anti-Congress vote.
It was an anti-Congress vote. All we did was we picked that up. My issue is, say Nandan, my point is, if the church, okay, especially in Saltet, was convinced that to save Goa, you needed to have a corruption-free Goa. You need to have a clean Goa.
So they chose corruption over communalism. Sorry, communalism over...
They chose anti-family Raj and anti-corruption over anything. Even though, of course, at that point of time, this whole issue of Mr. Parikar's decisions, the Good Friday holiday not being given, then that whole CD, Inquisition CD that came out, all these lingered. But the point is, at that point of time, and also a new Goa was coming into play. Goa, which was influenced by technology, a lot of young Goans were, rising up to take decisions. And Nandan, do not forget, and this is a narrative that you and I will get into again and again. There are a lot of non-resident Goans who also played a big part in the narrative.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
all we did as journalists was to be a vehicle, and this vehicle carried public opinion and put it back into the public space. We did not influence. We simply read the weather. We were very good readers of the weather, and we gave a good weather report. That, for the fact that that weather report was very surprising. See, suppose you say that there is going to be snow in the deserts of Rajasthan. Even if it's a correct weather report, people will get shocked.
Yes.
It was exactly this. This weather report was saying that there would be snow in the deserts of Rajasthan. But it was a correct weather report. So it was this people interpreted as Herald getting completely backed. We did nothing. We were just carrying voices. And on this note, what I did was, I personally, out of the 40 constituencies, personally I would have been to at least 30 of them, if not more. It could have been more, but at least 30 I would know, at least confidently say yes. And there were not whistle stop tours, spend time. And that was a time when perhaps I may be wrong, was the only journalist who used to go and spend the night there, not come back to say
Yes,
Panjim.
I still remember. And you would go to the taverns, you would get the gossip
And meet them.
right from the source.
Meet
and
people, stay in a local guest house or a small hotel. I would do that. I would not come back. There were almost 10 to 15 days I did not come back. And then also I was with Mr. Parikar when he did that whole yatra throughout Goa.
Yes.
And there I used to jump onto his vehicle at some point of time to talk to him. But otherwise I would maintain a distance and see people's reactions. And I would not look at people who would come and talk to him or who would hug him or whatever. When I would pass, suppose a convoy pass, I would stay a little behind and hear conversations after the convoy had passed.
That is the most important. That is where you get the
Real people.
feel of the
Correct.
thoughts of the
And
people.
most of my my research was not necessarily based on talking to people, by watching people. I still remember this was in most probably Kuchore, yes. In Kuchore or Kepe, I'm not very sure, but one of the two. Okay, Parikar's convoy had just passed, and I was just behind. And it was in a rural area before he entered the town. So his convoy went. There was one old lady who just came there, looked at him like this, with teardrops falling from her ear. I was convinced it's a Hindu lady. You will be shocked, and then she was not a Hindu lady. So I'm saying, and she did not know who I was. I was only watching faces. So the point is that these are things that tell you which way the wind is blowing.
My question was just to tell viewers that there is always an understanding between politicians and newspapers to some extent,
Correct.
which gets which promotes the candidates. Do you think time has come where the voters of Goa, the Goans themselves, will start pointing out, these are the people we want in our assembly? Has time changed? Or are we still in yesterday where candidates will be kept, we will still have to vote, the same damn story yesterday's would repeat back?
See, Nandan, I really wish from the bottom of my heart that I could give a resounding yes to that answer, saying people will vote. Honestly speaking, I don't think that, maybe the time has come, but I am not very confident of that happening. The reason being is there are two or three reasons. Firstly, I think the number of people who used to vote for Goa and make a difference has shrunk.
Okay.
Primarily because people are moving out with Portuguese passports. Let's be honest about it.
Okay.
Large parts of South Goa or Salsette
Okay.
consist of very committed Goans.
Okay.
Economic and other reasons have moved them out. I'm not saying that they are any less they are less of Goans, but they are very strong committed Goans who cannot vote because of economic choices they've taken with regard to passports.
Okay.
Okay, so that is a very big factor. Interestingly, that factor exists not in too many constituencies.
Okay.
And you all know that all agitations and movements and other things start from South Goa, which is the bedrock
Of course. Of
Okay.
course.
Now the issue is the BJP has played this very, very cleverly.
Okay.
They have understood that you can either win fairly or manage elections without necessarily winning Salsette.
Okay.
The Congress has all along put all their eggs into the Salsette basket.
Okay.
So what the BJP can do is, BJP, because of very scientific booth management and playing the caste factor very well in the rest of the state,
Okay.
managed to just get about enough seats to win. Of course, what happened in 2017 was an exact repeat of what happened in 2012, vice versa.
Yes.
They just couldn't breach that 3-seat mark.
Yes.
And then politics of management took over.
Yes.
But in my lifespan in Goa, I've seen 2012 happening and 2017 happening with the same factors determining both results. So, to answer your question, I don't think people will still say we want these candidates, because the reason being is, let us ask this question to the people of Goa.
No, my question
No,
is...
just
yes,
coming on to
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Two minutes. I'll tell you why this is not happening. Because a voter, when he really, majority of the voters, when they really start voting for their land and not for themselves, what you are saying will happen.
Yes.
But voters vote for themselves, which meaning they will want a candidate who will get him jobs, who will see to it that his illegal construction is legalized, to it that his bar license comes, and who will see to it that he gets some small petty business going so that his next 2 generations are taken care of. My point is, when you start voting for your own personal needs, then you cannot think about Goa. You will vote for a candidate who you think will be of service to you.
So, Mr. Sujoy Gupta, are you saying that we Goans are selfish voters?
Nandan, this has happened everywhere. I'm not saying Bengal voters, other voters, not. But at the end of the day, if I say that, I will not say all Goans are selfish voters, but I would still say that the number of voters who vote for themselves far outnumber the number of voters who vote for Goa.
So that means there are some selfish voters, there are some fence sitters,
Yes.
okay, who go by an opinion and a sway of, and they see which side the wind is blowing. But what about real goinkards who are giving their opinion today? See, today what happened? What has happened? Data. Because of data, everybody, all news is available for you on the phone.
Sure.
So a lot of Goans who are abroad are also connected to Goa. I'll give you an example today. In the morning, today morning, I got around 11 calls from all over the world. The 2 significant ones. One was a friend of mine, Shamin Rosario. She called me from Singapore. Now, Shamin is somebody I worship and adore because she has maintained, she's a Goan who has maintained around 15 to 20 houses and kept it without doing anything for the future generation. She told me, my children are not going to, but this is what my love for Goa is. She spoke, the rest I would not, because she's, and she said, I just want a job. The first thing I want to do is come back to Goa. The second is a very significant person. Prabhu Moye, Shogun Prabhu Moye, he called me from North Carolina. He's in US. And he said, the thoughts that you are speaking, the things that you are saying have made me realize some of my faults. See, Sujay, like how you wrote words. Today I want to speak words, you read between my lines. I am not here to canvass for no party. I am sitting here as a Goan talking to you with a simple theory, whatever it is. Let us all Goans find a way out in the mess that we only created.
Correct. Correct.
And we have created such a mess. To get out from this, we really would require sacrifice of some Goans.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
Because if you look at every constituency of a politician, he knows that this 25 are his worker, this can be bought by money, this can be bought by alcohol, and this opinion can be swayed. So when I asked Shamin, I said, Nandan, what about when she was talking to me? She said, look, I can influence 25 votes in Goa. 20 lakh Goans, Sujay, around the world. You mean to say 3-4 constituencies they cannot influence? What is your take on that?
Now they can influence. But the point is, the mathematics has to be right.
Yes.
Because if you have one shaman in one constituency,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
influencing 25 votes,
Yes.
you need to have more shamans in the same constituency.
Yes, but exactly what I am coming to.
You cannot have 10 shamans in 10 constituencies influencing 25
I
votes.
am not, see, today what this thing is these people who are abroad, they want their voice in our assembly.
Very true. Very true.
Okay.
Very true.
Suppose these people who are abroad choose on a random 5 people, okay, across the party. This is my voice in the assembly.
Correct.
Okay. And imagine, for example, XYZ constituency, there are 20 lakh people start calling Goans and say, for our sake, vote this guy. There will be a change.
Yes, Nandan.
And
No.
this is an experiment which might happen.
Nandan, I agree with you. I would like to put a few caveats.
Okay.
Agreeing with you, but put a few caveats in the sense, caveats towards ensuring that this happens.
Okay.
Because the intention is that this should happen.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. Okay?
Yes.
What is most important is that firstly, the Goans living abroad, across, and I feel at times they are far more invested in Goa's future
Yes.
than some people here.
Yes.
That's a feeling, okay?
Yes.
Without meaning any disrespect to anybody. But one
Because they are more connected to the land.
One feels
connect to the land is better.
one feels that, okay?
Yeah.
The issue is that firstly, there has to be a very strong narrative that they moving out of Goa was not out of completely selfish reasons. They moved out because they were looking for better opportunities, because opportunities
Yes.
did not exist here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They did not go because they did not like the land.
Yeah. You said it better.
Okay.
Nicely.
Which so that is something that needs to come in. Secondly, Nandan, out of all the Goans who live abroad, maybe 60% don't have Indian passports, but 40% still do. The point is they have voting rights. Firstly, what is most important is that there should be a campaign that people who still hold Indian passports and can vote in Goa should be allowed to vote through postal ballots.
Yes. But that's
No,
that's
but what
going
I'm
to
saying
be
is,
a
but no.
pan-India thinking.
No,
Can't just have-
but I'm essentially saying that movement has to start. Number one. Number two, people, that's the first narrative. The second narrative is all the foreign Goans should cumulatively raise their voice to people all over that you need to follow a certain narrative of change for the sake of your futures.
Yes.
And people understand. The people here should be absolutely convinced that what they are saying and looking at it from outside, they probably look at Goa a little better. Sometimes distance gives you clarity. See, for instance, as an outsider, I perhaps saw a lot of clarity in the way stories had to be presented or how Goa had to be approached or the issues that need to be taken up because I had stepped back. I did not have any baggages. Similarly, what happens is when you are living far away, you probably are understanding the situation much better. See, a NRI, a Goan in UK may be much more fearless and much more confident of taking on an issue locally than a Goan living here because he would still have to deal with the panchayat on a certain
No,
issue.
what has happened to UK, the concentration has become very big.
Yes.
It's almost 8-10 lakh Goans
Absolutely,
there.
correct.
And they have got that voice.
Correct.
Which, the rest of the world, we are fragmented.
Yes, and they've got the voice, and if you actually go to Swindon, you will find village-wise classifications.
Absolutely. You can't enter Heathrow
Yeah.
without meeting a Goan.
That's true. That's so true.
The only, let me just deviate a little, that Prabhu Moye made a beautiful thing. He said, in North Carolina, when I go out, the first thing if I go to a restaurant or anything, I ask, is there any Goan working here? He said, if there is, then I sometimes tell him, if you get a day to chill, come over to my house. There is this Goan spirit.
Correct. Very true. And we've all sensed it when we go abroad, when we meet people in Heathrow, when you land and you try to pick up your baggage, and if you're speaking with somebody in Konkani or one of your family members speaks Konkani, you'll find 2 people or 3 people in the baggage section of Heathrow coming in, running to you and talking to you. So this happens everywhere. So yeah, you're right. To get back to your original question, I think yes, people living outside Goa have a voice, and that can be really utilized.
Okay.
It has to be done properly. They need to also invest a little bit of the time in coming here and meeting people.
Okay.
Because everything can't happen on Facebook and Zoom calls.
Okay.
I think more and more Goans there should take some time off after the pandemic or when travel is there to actually come and meet people here, interact, meet. I think a little bit of connect will also help. But yes, the larger issue of the fact that they can actually influence very much is there. But I would say there's one very big silver lining that I'm seeing now is that the frustration of the people is reaching its peak, even within Goa. And the certain decisions that have been taken, which are clearly anti-people, have seen the kind of protests of the same vigor and intensity that one found during the regional plan agitation.
Yes.
Okay. So I think what is happening in village after village after village, people are reacting. I would say they are also reacting because they feel their own personal futures are also at stake. They are reacting because they are upset at what's happening to Goa collectively, but they also feel that even in the villages, if the topography changes, if the land use changes, if the whole system gets completely shaken up, their individual futures are also at stake. See, for instance, fishing communities. Now, in the coastal zone plan, if they see that there is no space given for fish mending, fish nets.
Yes. Because you require space.
Or if they say that the minimum distance for a fishing ward in a particular village has to be 500 meters from the coast. Yeah. That's completely silly, because which fisherman will lug his boats for 500 meters and take it into sea?
Yes.
So I'm just saying, so what is happening is that people are upset because for the first time they are feeling that there is a disconnect between them and politicians who are also Goan. And the anger is not necessarily against the government, but against even the public representatives. So they are also seeing that the future of Goa is getting affected, and they don't have the right leadership to address this. And which is why I see that people's movements are coming up. They're all democratic movements. There's no violence. They're all democratic movements, good movements. And a lot of young people are joining these movements, there's a great positivity in this.
Yes, but my only thing is, Sujay, is that, to do good for Goa, why do you have to be only an MLA?
You don't have to be.
See, I have a principle.
Don't have to be, correct.
I want to do good for Goa. I don't want to today be an MLA. Selfishness, the minute you are a part of this thing, then my selfish interest comes into play.
Right.
Here, it has to be interest of Goa without your selfish interest.
That's true. It has to be. That's
Am I
critical.
right or wrong?
That's critical. That's critical. Has
See,
to
the
happen.
day there is a parallel interest of Nandan Kutsadkar, I speak a language for which I want to extract something to sit in that, this thing, in the assembly, then my word is.
Nandan, it's a very important point. I will just discuss this, dwell on this a little bit more. You're very right, but people also need the right people to see that wrong laws and decisions are not imposed upon your Goan way of life, and you need a fresh leadership to deliver justice to the people. See, for instance, I'll give you an example. The major ports bill, it crept into our system and was heaped upon us without anybody realizing what damage it will do to our entire way of functioning. The MPT will be completely in charge of all the land it surveys, and its decisions will supersede every panchayat, every municipality and every local body. It's one of the most draconian things that have ever happened in Goa. The issue is that public representatives did not understand this. When the matter went up in Parliament, it was not argued properly. Even in the assembly, we woke up late. The reason I'm kind of perhaps dragging a bit and dwelling on it a little more than I should is to underline only one point, that you need leaders to emerge from people. I'm not saying have a BJP leader or a Congress leader or a AAP leader or whatever. You need people's leaders. I'm not aligning, I'm de-aligning or delineating leaders from parties. You need people's leaders to come out. And that is most important. That change is extremely important. Because very honestly, I don't think people are trusting the regular parties anymore. You need a new leader. And that is when a lot of the points that you made will be very valid. You need new influences, new people to tell you how to go about it. Non-resident Goans can play a part. Goans there also can play a part. But you have to understand that you have to have an absolutely fresh start and get people's leaders, not political leaders.
Well, I hope tere muh mein ghee shakkar, whatever you say in Bengali also, may something happen in which our Goa is saved. Let me go through a little
Different
part, which is, tell me, how do I, Sujay, you remember the great story of how the Zoroastrians came to, the Parsis came to Gujarat. They came in the ships.
Yes.
And they couldn't communicate. So they sent an empty pot to the king, saying that they want to be a part of the land. The king filled it with milk to the brim and sent it back to them, signifying that their land is full, nobody else is welcomed. The Parsis put sugar in it, mixed it and sent back. That is how Parsis became an integral part of
India.
that Gujarat. Yet, they made a contract to the king of Gujarat that they will not do marriages within this thing. They will marry within. They will keep their food habits to themselves. And till date, Parsis have kept that promise. My question now is, a person like you, Heta Pandit, I know many people, okay, who came into Goa and fell in love with Goa as much as me or more than me. Okay, you all have, Goans have welcomed you. We have never thought of you that you are a Bengali. now
I
on
have a
this-
Goan family, I have a Goan daughter.
No, now no. My question is,
Yes.
what kind of, how should a person who comes from outside behave with our motherland and be a part of this beautiful land? This is a question. You are here all these years. I want you to answer this because nobody else can.
No, I feel that there are many people like me who have done this. I see a lot amongst some very dear friends I've met. A lot of writers, environmentalists, artists, and you also know many
Yeah.
families whose involvement is very deep and extremely committed. People not just in the journalism profession, of course, that's few and far between, but in other fields. And people have come here, and I know a lot of people who've kind of restored buildings.
Oh, yes.
And then are amazing architects. So that is their way of showing love and using the professional skills to do it. There are people who work on the environment side. Even filmmakers who genuinely kind of talk about Goa through their work. So there are many of them. So Nandan, I really feel that your love for Goa will only grow if you assimilate. Sometimes and not dominate. Because what happens is there is perhaps a tendency among certain sections who feel that they are doing good to Goa. I often hear this narrative, especially in the North Goa belt, where people come in and they say, okay, we are building up our second holiday home here, okay, and then they say, because of us, the Goan economy is growing, and we are giving jobs, and we are coming here, and because of us, villages are getting developed, and so on and so forth. Now that's a condescending way of looking at Goa, because my point is, Goa was not poorer without them.
Exactly.
Perhaps richer in some place.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Many people who come in here and see Goa superficially as a great place to party and have homes and property don't see the depth of what Goa is.
Yes.
They don't understand the depth of Goa's culture, its traditions, its writing, its art, its literature,
Music.
its architecture, its music. There is very little appreciation of this. So the thing is, they don't understand that they are entering a very rich civilization, and they should be grateful in their own way. They don't need to shout from the rooftops, but in their relationship with Goa, that gratefulness should come at least from within. And that is what is important, because at the end of the day, this land has embraced you.
Oh, yes.
So you have to feel that embrace. It is like a mother taking another child into the home, adopting a home when she already has children of her own. It is not a mother bereft of children, but it is a mother accepting more children coming in and treating them as her own. I think that acceptance, and that's exactly what has happened to me. And I really feel very humbled when I look at my relationship with Goa.
So from B to G, not many words. How do you, where are you are you a now Goan with a Bengali touch, or are you a Bengali who has got more of Goan?
See, Nandan,
Essence in
just
you.
one just point of record. I mean, though I'm from Bengal, but we had home, and we had we had businesses in Jharkhand and Hazaribagh. Then during my working career, I've lived all over the country. I was actually born in Chennai, incidentally.
Okay.
My father was posted in different parts of the country, so I've lived and schooled in different cities. So I have a very pan-Indian outlook, and even while working, I've worked in Bhopal. I've lived in Lucknow for 6 years. I've lived in fact, my first son is was born in Lucknow, actually. Okay. Then I've lived and worked in Bihar. I worked in Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, in Bhopal, in Kashmir. I lived and worked in. So I have lived all over the country. I've had the pleasure of living, working, traveling. So the thing is, so at the end of the day, all that comes in. But I have never lived in any one place for 17 years.
Oh, never.
So, in every way, I think, there's no, and also, Nandan, to be honest, I don't think I ever will leave. There's no reason to. And this is, you finally find your roots, and you're not getting younger. You're all graying and.
Yeah, but now you have a Goan daughter, so
Yes,
you know.
we are very much. And family is here, and I must tell you that I wanted to share this, that a large part of your assimilation also happens because you're kind of welcomed, and you're given home, you're given a family, which is so important. And then you understand the nuances. And also what happens is I also am a little biased towards South Goa, also a little bit, for two reasons. Primarily because of Herald and his journalism is one,
Yeah.
but also because of there are, I feel, more people in the south, have preserved the essence of Goa a little bit more than the north. I know some people may not like it, but that's again a personal feeling because of what I am. I may be wrong, but I somehow feel that South Goa has retained the essence of Goa a little bit more. South Goa, I would say up to say Tiswadi. I would include Tiswadi in it. Tiswadi and South Goa.
Okay.
But the issue is that beyond the Mandavi Bridge, Bardes and other places, they're nice. There's some lovely villages, lovely places. Of course, if you look at Perne, Sattari and other places, okay. But Bardes, for some reason, is I would say losing the Goan touch a little bit.
So it's going much more into the commercial.
Correct. Yes.
See, we Goans only are responsible for destroying the architectural beauty of what you can't blame.
Yes.
You can't blame others for it. Is there an art of voter management in political parties? And if so, how is it done?
Well, straight off the bat, the answer is a resounding yes. There's an art, but more than the art, I think there's a science and maths to it.
There is a science of how to.
Now there are different schools of management.
Okay.
Okay. So for instance, in any MBA course, there are different strains of management that you learn.
Okay.
Some people specialize in finance, some people specialize in corporate management and what have you and all that. So similarly, it's exactly like this. So there is one school of management which is completely mastered by Tiswadi politician,
Okay.
and it is management by clearly buying votes.
Okay.
So it's a total purchase, a trade-off. Before the elections, there will be the goodies, there will be television sets, there will be scooters, the age-old format. And you would capture a particular cluster of booths. So you may lose in all booths, but capture 3 or 4 clusters, including a very big slum. You capture
The migrant
you capture
total.
it and you're done. That's a very clear-cut way. It's a straight trade-off. The other is a little deviation from that. That is constantly feeding the voting class
Okay.
through certain freebies, like admissions, medical bills being paid. That's a long-term. Okay. So this is a quick buy. That is a long-term fixed deposit. So that happens. So this is pure trade-off. The other is using caste and community vote banks properly. So there are certain parties. See, for instance, there was a long time that I think the BJP managed the Bhandaris very well. It did not work ultimately, but to a large extent it did. The Congress for a very long time, their synergy with the Catholics was synonymous. So that is one part of management where they kept their community banks and caste banks completely okay. I would also say, for instance, look at Mr. Digambar Kamat's relationship with the Moti Dongor area slum. It is a direct one-to-one relationship. Okay, so one is a direct trade-off. The other is the Raja Praja relationship. Like Digambar almost has a Raja Praja relationship with Moti Dongor. Vishwajit Rane and the Ranes have a Raja Praja relationship with Poriye and Valpoi. So that is a different art of management. What the BJP has done is brought in a new element to it. which they have done countrywide, they are actually managing booths, not during elections, but looking at every voter in every booth.
Micromanagement.
Micro. And those voters are addressed, there's a relationship being built in with singular voters.
Yes.
And do you know which other party is emulating it? Up.
Up. Yes.
So that is a different science altogether. What they have realized is you cut out every other consideration.
Yes.
You get into every booth and you have one person, like BJP had something like Panna Pramukhs,
Yes.
where one page of your voting list was in charge of one person for not 2 months, for 2 years or 3 years. And then cultivate it, get into their lives, get into their futures. So I think it's a build up like this. So what I'm essentially saying is that is also happening. Now whether the bigger issues of Goa, which would force people to vote in a particular way for Goa and for the land, whether that energy or that need is going to be bigger than your personal needs and your relationship with your Panna Pramukh remains to be seen.
But how would you rate Goan political parties? Say MGP, Goa Forward, Vijay's party. They've done exceptionally good. 3 seats in this thing was not easy.
That time it was not easy at all. It was very commendable to win at that point of
3
time.
seats
Yes.
for Goa Forward.
Yes,
Hats
yes.
off.
Correct.
I mean, he
Given the situation when there was no party literally at that time. There were individuals who really worked very strongly.
So now there are 2 AAP has come in.
Yes.
There is also RG. There is also many other mushrooming parties coming every day.
Goencho Awaz, for instance.
Goencho Awaz is there.
Yes.
Forgot it. Who else is there?
Goencho Awaz is there. You mentioned all of them.
All
Correct.
this
Correct.
thing. How is this thing? Because these are this thing that stood for Goa. The backbone is we don't have to listen to anybody.
Yes, true.
Where do they stand?
See, Nandan, I genuinely feel that there has to be some kind of a coming together of forces. Too many parties, fledgling parties spreading out will weaken the opposition.
So that means what you say is there would be 2 major parties, pro-BJP and pro-Congress.
Correct.
And this all will be...
So I think the anti-BJP forces, see, BJP does not have any other ally, nor does it think it needs any other ally. MGP also, we know that MGP itself is not united. I mean, in the sense that there is no one MGP now. Okay. So the issue is right now, the BJP through its own strength plus cobbled strength.
Yeah, but
is
most well-organized party today is BJP.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt.
Organization,
Yes.
from the organization to this thing, very organized.
Poll management, they will do the best.
Poll management.
Yes, they will do the best.
Because they have understood how the poll management...
The Congress does not understand any poll management.
My question very simple is, where is the Congress? There is no management.
Yes, absolutely. I understand that, correct.
So if this thing does not exist, then this rest of the Goan parties will inflate into Congress vote bank.
They obviously will. There's no doubt about it. I'm essentially saying is that, for instance, in any one particular constituency, if you have and BJP will play it very clever. In areas where they are not strong, they will back one candidate. Okay? They can even, BJP is clever, they can even back one of these fledgling parties also in some places. But the non-BJP opposition, if it is splintered, and in Goa elections are won on 500 votes, 600 votes, 1000 votes. The issue is that if the constituency size was huge, you can buffer it. But the constituency size is so small that if there are about 4 or 5 candidates contesting on a non-BJP ticket, there is going to be absolute hodgepodge. Votes will split like anything. BJP will end up winning with small margins. Their overall vote share will be very low. I'm telling you, BJP can win with a 20% vote share if so many
This split takes place.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
This next election is going to be an eye-opener. By the way, let me phrase this thing. Okay, I'll say it is the last question. I don't want to When is the election? 2021 or 2022?
Nandan, your guess is as good as mine. We are both friends chatting and conjecturing. I don't have any additional information that that you do not have at this point of time. I can just hazard a professional guess. There is a huge possibility of it getting advanced. Primarily because, and this will be dictated obviously, by the center. We will have to wait for the results of Bengal, Tamil Nadu and these elections to come. And I think then we'll be in a clearer position to say what, if the BJP does very badly in these elections, they might just about advance it.
That possibility.
That possibility is there. But it all depends on what these states throw up. Of course, in Tamil Nadu, it's not the BJP which is a big player there. I'm talking mainly of Bengal. But
What do you think will happen in Bengal?
see, Nandan, I'm sticking my neck out, and though I know that I don't I have no stakes in Bengal anymore. I really don't think the BJP will be able to wrest Bengal from TMC.
You think she's...
I personally don't think, and again, my source of information is just a lot of reading, a lot of conversations with people who are from there. I have no personal knowledge, but from whatever the feedback is in what I feel, and this is...
But BJP has done a lot of inroads in Bengal.
Nandan, they have done, but what do they have to show for it? 3 seats, 4 seats.
Oh, where is the Congress there?
The Congress has not done too well either. I'm saying right now there's TMC. The Congress has not done too well either. But the BJP also, they don't have anything to show for themselves, right? In the election after election, they did not get seats. So we'll see how it goes, depending on how they play it. But anyway, that's a different story. I'm more keen on what happens in Goa.
Yes. I had to ask a Bengali what happens in Bengal.
Yeah. But now I think my system feels Goan. I don't feel like a Bengali anymore. Though I love the language, I have great friends, I miss Bengal a lot. I also feel there are certain conversations and chats about plays, about poetry, about politics is very rejuvenating, as far as Bengal is concerned. So I think that aspect of it is something that will always remain with me, and I'll treasure it. And I would like to dip back again and again to get that out of Bengal, because that is one thing in Bengal which is good, is very endearing and refreshing for anybody who claims to be at least some kind of an intellectual. At least.
Thanks, Sujay. I thought you would duck some of my questions, but that.
No, with you, Nandan, who can duck? So it's because at the end of the day, you feel comfortable, and I think I must take this opportunity to actually congratulate you for being so candid and candid. And I think you managed to draw out a lot of people, and this easy conversational style is something that has never been practiced in Goan television or even in print, which is why I think people come to you, because they are comfortable about it. And I don't need to do this endorsement, but I really felt that it is very good and people are responding to it. And I think even if this initiative was not planned, but like my movement to Goa, it just worked out wonderfully.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Sujay.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming here and
Thanks.
all the words that you spoke.
Thank you, Nandan, for having a great conversation and
Thank you.
And enabling me to say a lot of things that were bottled up, I guess.
Oh, yes. Oh, we can do one more. No problem. Tell me what things are bottled up. We'll have another candid.
Great. Maybe some other time. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.